Welcome. We're going to take a look at Microsoft Excel and some of its basic features for lawyers and what it can do. First thing to note about Excel is how it handles data entry a little bit differently than most programs. As you can see, when you open up a blank Excel spreadsheet, it opens up a book number 1. Generally, you will see down along the bottom that there are 3 sheets by default. You can add more if you want to by just clicking this or pressing the shortcut key for Shift and F11. You can rename these by double clicking and making it your sheet or whatever you want it to be. And these are important because Excel will use these names for other sheets. If you want to look up something from this sheet called your sheet over here on sheet 3, you can relate back to that and get the information from your sheet over to sheet 3. So as you learn more about Excel, you'll understand a little bit more how these features work together, but this is kind of the default setup. With respect to the data that Excel uses, it organizes its data by rows and columns. So if we click here, you see that column A is highlighted and all the rows in column A are shown up. So the rows are the vertical. If you look here, I've highlighted row 1. It goes across all of the column headings. Or if I tap here, it will select column A all the way down through the end. And so when you're putting your data together or putting your spreadsheet together, know that text or images or the things that you are going to host, numbers or whatever, are housed inside of each of these columns. If you see here, you can tell that you are inside of A1, and there's a black box around there that indicates that if you started typing, like the word hello, for example, it would show up in that column. Now you can see that there's a blinking cursor there. That means I'm in edit mode on this particular cell. If I want to get out of that, I either press the return key or the tab key or one of the arrow keys. And depending on which key I choose to press, there will be different functions. So this time I pressed the enter key and it brought me down to row number 2 in column A. Let's go back up. I will use the arrow key to select A1. If I'd press the tab key, I would move over to B1, and you can see that Excel 2010, the version we're looking at here, highlights the position of the input box. So we are in column letter B, row number 1, and I'm going to put another word in there and press tab, and that moves me over. Again, if I was in that column and pressed enter, that would move me down. Excel is pretty smart, and it knows if you're organizing data in a particular way, it will kind of guess where you want to go, and that can be both helpful and confusing. Just so pay attention to how you're using Excel. Generally, either use the tab key to get out of edit mode and move over to another cell or column, and the same with the enter key can move you up or down. The arrow keys on your keyboard, you may not have had much use for them in other programs, but they're extremely helpful in Excel as you can move around the grid. It kind of reminds me of a battleship game board, how Excel is laid out, so you can move across things pretty quickly, and if you hold the shift key down and move to the right, you can select up or down or across very easily, which is a nice feature as well. Using your mouse, you can do the same thing. You can click and hold and drag to select various ranges and do different things, such as put in formatting on a particular selection of cells, such as all borders, which will take and insert formatted lines as shown up here, kind of as you may be familiar with in a Microsoft Word table. We're going to go ahead and remove that and take that out. So that's kind of the basic data entry information that goes into cells in either rows or columns, and depending on what type of information that you're going to put together in what type of report will depend on how you want to set that up, whether you want to put a title at the top and those types of things. Keep in mind that Excel also can use headers and footers, and so you can use these areas, these worksheets here, as your primary area, and then put in title and that kind of information in a header or a footer later on. Alright, so let's get started with one of the main uses of Excel, and that is putting in a list of information. Let's say that this time we wanted to, in another portion of our, in another portion of our class, we have discussed the use of Microsoft Word to organize medical information related to an injured party. And so we've had columns like date and provider and description of treatment. Now, a couple of things I'd like to note here about how Excel handles text entry. If you look here, we have the word date, and all of that fits very well within A1. If you look under B1, provider appears to fit. When we go over to C, description of treatment, we can see that it's kind of extended past the border or the edge of cell C1 and is now covering D1 and E1. We don't know if that's going to look good at the end of the document and when we're ready to print that, and so we might want to go ahead and format it now, or we can let Excel do that for us. Now, incidentally, if we had one more column here, that would, let's just put amount of service, for example. You'll see now that that is hidden behind the text here in D1, and if you would like to see everything that's under C1, put your cursor in between C and D till it becomes a little crosshair like that, and double tap or double click, and that will automatically expand that row to show you everything that's within that cell. We don't know for sure that we'll need this, but we'll leave that in for the moment. And you can do the same thing over here and it will shrink. Now, this is another feature of Excel that can make folks feel like they've lost data. And so let me show you what happens when we put in date here. I'm going to put in the date 1/1 of 2015 and press the tab key. Now you can see that Excel 2010 is smart enough to go ahead and move that over for me to auto size to that. Some other versions of Excel may not be, and so if that's sized to accommodate the word date but not the data that's in A2, you'll get these pound or hash marks to show you that the data that's in that cell cannot be displayed. And so you can see it up here in the formula bar where you can come in and edit whatever is in a particular cell, but when you click out of it and when you print that, that won't show up. And so we'll let Excel kind of auto expand that for us. So let's put in doctor number 1 and we'll say x-ray here and we'll call that $10. What's kind of neat about Excel in the sense of what it can do is, as long as you have the information in and you don't really care how it looks, you can just quickly fill up a lot of information and organize data in a very, very quick way. But if you want a little bit more professional look to your document as well, it can really help you to use some of the built-in formatting styles that are available in Excel. So if we come over here and hit format as table, then it will give us a whole lot of different options that we can choose from. And for this example, we'll just choose a light table style and apply that. And it's going to ask, Excel will ask us if we want to format this area selected by what's called the dancing ants around our data set is as a table. This information is contained here. You can see the cell references that are in here, and you can choose to select whether or not the table has headers. Here we do. These are the headers: date, provider, description, amount of service. And headers are very important for your data, and I'll show you why in just a moment. Click OK, and now we can see that Excel has taken that information and formatted it for us. And it's brought us over to the design of the table, so we can do different things within that. We can change the style, make the color change to red instead of gray. You can have banded columns or just show the last column, or you can add a totals row at the bottom by clicking that button, and that will total this column for us automatically. We won't have to put anything in. I'm going to show you a little later how to add that formula, so I want to leave that out for now. But that's very nice that that's in there. And incidentally, you can do different things with that totals column. Instead of just total, you can average, count the numbers, min and max, and various different things that are in there, which is a very handy feature as well. Why I like these lists is, if you can see here, and I'm not sure if the video will show this, but at the bottom right hand corner of our list there's a little indicator that shows us we're at a list. So when I get to the end of this row and press the tab key, Excel's going to add another level to our list and put everything in there formatted the same way. And so if I say 1/2/2015 and we went to Dr. 02 and we had a follow-up visit, and this time it was $25. Now when I get to the end of the list, instead of pressing enter, I'll press tab and it'll move me over to the final line. And I'm looking through a bunch of documents now, and I have one that shows up from December 31st of 2014. Now I don't really want to go through and figure out where that is in the list manually. I want to do that automatically. But this was for Dr. 01 as well, and this was a follow-up visit. Notice when I start typing follow-up visit, it found that I had already typed that before and suggests that I use it again, which is very handy and can speed up data entry. So I've typed just a few keys, FOL, and it found that I've used that before, and it says, hey, do you want to use it again? I'll hit the tab key to select that, and this one was $90. All right, I pressed enter to get me out of the list now, because I want to show you a couple of things that are really nice with how Excel works. So if we click on the date column header and allow Excel to find that information for us, you can see that there's lots of ways to filter this data. You can quickly sort it from oldest to newest, which puts December 31st, 2014 at the top of our list very quickly. You can also then sort it by multiple levels. So if you want to sort it by provider and see all of the treatment that was by Dr. 1 versus Dr. 2, or if you wanted to just look at the x-rays, you could select just the x-rays and have that show up. As you can see, the more information that you have in, and if you wanted to be able to filter your information with that amount of specificity, it's very powerful for doing that. I mentioned before that there is a way to do the automatic total on this. So again, if you click in here and go back over to the design and hit the total roll, we can see that Excel has already totaled the amount of service, guessing that we wanted this sum here in the bottom. And if we wanted to make this look like a number, click on the Home tab, come over here to the number area. Right now it's got a general formatting, and we could have it do all kinds of things. If we wanted to do an accounting or a currency, I generally use accounting. Could do that up here as well. Change all of these to accounting just to make it look a little bit nicer as well. You can change the font, put in bold, italics, or underline, and do different things with that as well. And you don't need to use lists. You can just type in the information in any of the columns and rows, and that will show down. But lists kind of help organize that information and make it easier to maneuver by putting these auto filters in as you go. Now let's say you wanted to figure out whether you had any duplicates in a particular area, or you wanted to count the number of follow-up visits or show that by color. It's very easy to use what's called conditional formatting. There's different types of value ways to highlight different cells. There's top and bottom. There are different types of things that you can do with these different areas of Excel, including even putting in different icons and those types of things. So if you're looking for duplicate values, you can just hit highlight cells, tap on duplicate values, and you can choose how you want it. Let's say we want it to show up with green fill, and hit OK. What will happen once we select the areas that we want Excel to look for duplicate values in is it will highlight those for us in that color, and so we can quickly see hey, this was a follow-up visit, or this was an x-ray. This can also be helpful if you've got multiple entries for the same area and you're double counting numbers, for example, because you may be seeing some sort of repeating data set in your information. But that can be a handy way to format your data and help do some analysis by color as well. You can also do that for just whatever section of the document you want to look at, or if you want to look at all of it, just select it all and it will do some of that formatting for you. Alright, let's take a look then, removing this total row that Excel did for us. And what we want to do then is also, let's take this out of a table. So this is just regular text for us. And take a look at that now. That's just text that's formatted. And what we'll do is come in here and unformat some of that. Okay, now we're back to just standard data in a list. And so, excuse me, I want to put in the word total and show you how we can add up all of these. There's a couple different ways, but using the sum formula is one way to do that. To tell Excel we want to use a calculated field or cell, we tap the equal key, and that shows us that we are in wanting to put a formula into the cell. As you can see up here, Excel has already guessed that we probably want to sum because we've got a range of numbers here. And so we can start typing the word sum, and Excel will give us all of the sum formulas that are available. If you press the tab key, we'll put the open parent in, and now it's telling you number 1, number 2, number 3. That just means which number do you want to select first and add into your sum range. And so now we put those 3 in because we have those 3 numbers, and we can close that with a close parent to close off the formula. Press the enter key, and we can see that Excel has summed D2 through D4 and taking these amounts. Incidentally, once you've had these selected, if you look down here to the bottom of your workbook, Excel shows you that you're summing 3 rows or 3 cells, shows you the total, and it shows you the average. Kind of nice if you need to just look at a quick subset of data in a larger data set. But here we know that we've got our total of $125. And if we wanted to just manually format this range of information, we could select just the smaller piece and maybe put this as all borders. And then maybe we wanted this one just to be one big border outside box to show that that was the total, or we wanted this to be a little bit different color, and so we go up here and fill it with a lighter gray so that stands out just a little bit different. But as you can see, that took me several steps, whereas before just using the format as table put all of that information together very quickly. There is a number of easy functions to use. If you wanted to know the average, you can start talking or typing the word average. Excel guesses that's what you want to do, so you select that, and then you press the tab key. Again, it opens that parenthetical to say you're starting it. Select the 3 numbers that are in our data set up here. Type in the closed parent and press enter. Now we know the average cost of service was $41.67. Type the word average in here and say we wanted this same look to appear on this row. We could collect all the information from these cells and click on the little paintbrush, tap it down here, and that quickly formatted those 2 exactly the same, including the number formatting that shows up over here to make this look like it's in accounting format. So those are just some real basic. You can take cells and just make them relative to themselves. So we want to add D2, and we can add the little plus sign. D3, add the little plus sign, and then click on D4 and press enter and get the same result. A little bit more cumbersome as you're trying to click on each particular thing, but if you need to reference something over here in column F, plus G and then back over to D. That's one way to do that. Also, Excel can multiply, divide, subtract, and do almost any other calculation that you may need. Excel is also great at doing charts and putting in information into just a visual form. So let's see what we can figure out for this particular chart. Very simply, let's add a row. If I right click here, I can insert, and that will move all of these cells down. And if I wanted to just have a chart of this information, I could click on insert and choose the different types of charts that I wanted to do. This isn't a great data set for charts, but let's choose a 2D bar chart just to see how quickly Excel can put that information together. And so what you can see is Excel will grab the information and throw it into a chart that you can use and move around in different ways. There's a bunch of different chart tools up here where you can design it using different colors, select the data that you want it to analyze. You can move things around by saying switch column and row data, where we see all of the different information that is appearing in our chart is the date, the provider, the description, and the amount of the service. And we can see that Doctor Visit 1, the amount of the service is greater than Doctor Visit number 3, where the numbers are different for the different amounts. You can also change the layout, which is fairly substantial, putting in the different titles of the axis. You can put the legends within, which are basically the information about your chart, all of the different things that you would like to do, and you can format it in various ways as well. You can get pretty creative here, which is fairly time-consuming, but can be fun to pull that data out and really make the point that you're trying to make. Alright, as I mentioned, Excel is great for not only numbers, but also for lists of text. So for example, if you wanted to say client first name, client last name, client address, client phone, client email, you could do all of this information and build a pretty robust list and pieces of information. Now, incidentally, with Excel, it's always best to have as discrete a piece of information as you can. So rather than just saying client name, for example, if we use first name, John Doe, that allows us to then filter by last name, first name, and put those into Microsoft Word later in a merge field, and we could even add in a salutation. So let's insert and shift the cells to the right, and we'll move this over. I could have done this a lot more efficiently by inserting it up here and moving all of that, but I wanted to show you what Excel does. But if we say client salutation, you can type the word Mr. Now we can go in there. Again, if you have the address in, you can break it out by city, state, and zip. Those types of things will help you later if you want to filter by zip code, for example, or particular cities. But just for this example, we'll put in 1234 Main Street. And again, let me show you the difference here. If I select this and hit right-click, hit Insert, I can do Client City. We'll do it again, and one more time. Client State, Client Zip. So we'll say Indiana 4444, and 317-123-3344, and john@doe.com. Excel knows that we have an email in here and hyperlinks that for us as well. And you can put this information in. We'll just duplicate. Alright, so we've selected this. Let's move that information down. Hit the wrong key there. Control D will put that information down, just so we can have a little bit to play with. Now that that's in here, if we wanted to make this a list so we could filter it, again, just format that as a table. Do the light one, click OK. Now we can filter that information fairly quickly. If we wanted to change this to AZ and Kentucky and Michigan and Ohio and Maine, Wisconsin, and we'll put that in. So now we have kind of a various range of data. We can now select all of that, or just select those that are in Arizona, quickly filter that list. Again, all the names are going to be the same, but when you have something filtered, you'll know, because this row area over here changes the color to blue. So you can tell if you came in, if you're not looking at a full data set or wondering where your data is, somebody has come in, maybe and filtered that down, saved it and forgot to open it up. So you find that and then go across your headers until you find where the little funnel icon appears. Click that, hit select all, and you should see everything that you have again. Again, as you can see, this can be very powerful as far as organizing information, and then you can sort that by different ways. So if we change that to Zoe and Noe and Loey and Joey and Co, putting a couple different in, we can quickly sort that A to Z and have all that information in that entire data set all the way across filtered appropriately, which is very handy. So those are some of the basic uses for Excel. There's a lot more that this program can do, and as you play with it, you kind of think, boy, it'd really be nice to do this, or what if I could get this information from this spreadsheet to the next one. Those types of things are where Google, YouTube, lynda.com can really help you take the information that you're looking for and figure out a better way to do that. So I hope that's helpful for you. I hope that gives you a quick overview of how to get into and maneuver around Excel and to start using that.